So, you want to buy FIFA, or at least you want to understand how an organization that owns no clubs, signs no players, and does not play a single match for 3 years out of every 4 somehow earns more money than the leagues, federations, and countries that actually do the work of football. Here's the part that should bother you. The Fédération Internationale de Football Association, based in a quiet office building in Zurich, made $7,500,000,000 from the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The 32 national federations that spent 4 years qualifying their players, running training camps, and paying travel costs split between all of them, $440 million combined. Have you ever wondered why the trophy is gold, but the money never seems to reach the people who actually kick the ball? By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how an organization with a permanent staff smaller than a mid-sized bank extracts more profit from one tournament than entire countries make from hosting it. You will see how the World Cup model actually works, why host nations keep signing up for a deal that loses them billions, and why the people running world football have built something closer to a licensing empire than a sports federation. Let's start with what FIFA actually sells, because it is not football. Membership in FIFA is technically free. 211 national federations belong to it, more countries than belong to the United Nations. Each one gets a vote, one country, one voice, whether it is Germany with 83 million people or Montserrat with about 5,000. That single detail is the whole business model in miniature. A small island federation with almost no football infrastructure carries exactly the same voting weight as a country that produces half the world's professional players. And FIFA does hand out money to these federations through something called development funds. Each member association receives roughly $1.5 million every 4-year cycle for football development, plus additional grants for specific projects, stadiums, academies, youth programs. That's where Reynald Tamari comes in. In 2010, Tamari was president of the Oceania Football Confederation, representing tiny Pacific nations like Fiji, Vanuatu, and his home country of Tahiti. That year, FIFA was voting on hosts for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups, and Tamari held one of the 24 executive committee votes. An undercover investigation by the Sunday Times caught him allegedly discussing a $10 million payment for his region's football development in exchange for his vote. He always denied wrongdoing, but FIFA's ethics committee suspended him anyway before the actual World Cup vote even happened. One small federation president, one vote, one insider game. He thought he understood well enough to play. He never got the money. He never got the World Cup vote back. What he got was a lifetime lesson in how expensive a single vote can be inside a room where everyone is holding one. So that's how you get into the system. But how does FIFA actually make its money once the tournament starts? The answer is almost embarrassingly simple. FIFA does not build a single stadium. It does not own a single training ground. It sells 4 things: broadcasting rights, sponsorship deals, licensing, and hospitality packages, all tied to one single month-long event that happens once every 4 years. Broadcasting rights alone brought in about $3 billion for the 2022 tournament. Sponsorship added another $1.6 billion from companies like Coca-Cola, Adidas, and Qatar Airways paying for their logo to sit next to the world's most watched sporting event. FIFA's entire cost of producing that revenue, salaries, event logistics, security coordination came to roughly $1.5 billion. Net result, FIFA walked away from the 2022 World Cup cycle with over $1 billion in pure profit, while the country that actually built the stadiums was still writing checks. That country was Brazil in 2014, and the man standing in front of the cameras promising it would be worth it was Aldo Rebelo, Brazil's Minister of Sport. Brazil spent $11 billion building or renovating 12 stadiums across the country, a sum larger than the government budgets of several small nations combined. One of those stadiums, the Arena da Amazônia in Manaus, cost $300 million to build in a city with no major professional football club. It hosted 4 World Cup matches total. Today, it is used mostly as a bus depot and occasionally for lower league matches that draw a few thousand people into a stadium built for over 40,000. Rebelo believed, like every host country believes, that the tourism, the infrastructure, the global spotlight would pay the bill back. But here's the moment nobody warns you about. FIFA keeps the broadcasting money. FIFA keeps the sponsorship money. The host country keeps the stadiums, the debt, and whatever tourists actually show up. So, if the math is this lopsided, why does any country still volunteer to host? because on paper, the promise still sounds irresistible. Economic studies commissioned before these events routinely predict tens of billions in tourism revenue, job creation, global brand elevation. The problem is that independent economists, the ones not paid by the bid committee, almost never find those numbers afterward. Ask Danny Jordan. In 2010, he was the chief executive who delivered South Africa's World Cup, the first ever held on the African continent. By almost every measure of execution, he succeeded. The tournament ran smoothly, the stadiums were finished on time, the world watched a proud, well-organized event. South Africa spent close to $4 billion building and upgrading 10 stadiums for that tournament. FIFA's own reported revenue from that four-year cycle came in around $3.3 billion, most of it flowing straight back to Zurich, not Johannesburg. Today, Cape Town Stadium, built for the tournament at a cost of roughly $600 million, cost the city millions of dollars every single year just to maintain hosting a fraction of the events it needs to break even. Jordan did everything right. He delivered the event, delivered the spectacle, delivered exactly what he was asked to deliver. The system was never designed to let the host keep the profit. It was designed to let the host keep the risk. Isn't it strange that the party planning the party pays for the venue and the guest of honor walks away with the gift money? This is the part that should really sit with you. FIFA operates like a parasite that has evolved to be extremely good at choosing hosts and extremely careful never to become one itself. It attaches to a country for 4 weeks, draws out revenue that the country's own infrastructure spending made possible, and attaches before the bill for stadium maintenance ever arrives. The host builds the body. FIFA just visits the bloodstream, and like any structure built entirely on other people's foundations, the whole thing occasionally cracks. In 2015, American federal agents arrested more than a dozen FIFA officials in a Zurich hotel at dawn on charges spanning 24 years of bribery, racketeering, and money laundering. It was the biggest corruption scandal in the history of organized sport, and it barely slowed the organization down. Here are the two scenarios, side by side, using real numbers from the same institution in the same era. Scenario 1. FIFA itself. Revenue for the 2019 to 2022 cycle, $7.5 billion. Operating costs, roughly $1.5 billion. Prize money and grants distributed to federations under $1 billion combined. Net profit retained by the organization, over $1 billion, with almost none of it obligated to build a single piece of physical infrastructure anywhere on Earth. Scenario 2, the average host nation. Infrastructure spending, somewhere between $4 billion and $11 billion, depending on the country. Direct revenue returned to the host government from the tournament itself, essentially zero, because FIFA keeps broadcasting and sponsorship money by contract. Indirect economic benefit, contested by economists, usually estimated far below what was promised during the bid. Net result for the country, a loss frequently running into the billions, plus decades of stadium maintenance costs on buildings that may host a handful of events a year. That is the gap. One side collects a global broadcasting fee, the other side pays a global construction bill and rents out the aftermath for weddings and concerts to try to break even. Now, the two men. Gianni Infantino became FIFA president in 2016 and expanded the World Cup to 48 teams for 2026, a change that is projected to push FIFA's four-year revenue for that cycle past $11 billion. His reported annual compensation runs above $4 million, and under his leadership, FIFA's cash reserves have grown into the billions, insulated almost entirely from the risk that host nations absorb every single time. Then there's Chuck Blazer, the American who sat on FIFA's executive committee for over 2 decades. Blazer took in an estimated $20 million in bribes and kickbacks over his career, living in a Trump Tower apartment with a second unit next door reportedly kept just for his cats. In 2011, facing tax charges, he became an FBI informant, wearing a wire into FIFA meetings. He forfeited over $19 million, owed the Internal Revenue Service more than $1.9 million in unpaid taxes, and died in 2017, sick, indebted, and erased from the organization he had helped run for 20 years. One man built an empire that keeps growing no matter who gets arrested. The other